Hello and welcome to Sincerely Elvis Presley. I'm Sean. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. Several weeks ago I did 2 or 3 episodes looking at CD sets that were released as separate entities but could be gathered together to form one set of CDs. I looked at the Time Life collection, the Millennium Masters, and the campaign that was the Artist of the Century. Although they weren't linked together, they all fell under the Artist of the Century banner. And at the time I said I can think of a few other sets that came out and around a similar kind of timeline, certainly into the 2000s. And one of those you can see here. So I thought it was about time that I talked about these, because it was a somewhat controversial campaign in the way it was executed with the very best of intentions. For Elvis's 70th birthday, Sony BMG decided to release his 18 UK #1 singles, one a week, limited edition, numbered, in special CD format and also in 10-inch vinyl format. Now, when I say a little bit controversial, nothing like this had ever been attempted before. It was attempted at a time when really CD singles were just about dying out, and in some ways, you know, I don't want to say the charts were dying out, because the charts still exist today, but you know, to get a #1 in this era was a very different kettle of fish to getting a #1, you know, when these singles were originally #1s. Then you had to sell hundreds of thousands of copies. It was nothing like that in this era. But RCA, Sony BMG, you know, that triumvirate or whatever you want to see it as, it does sometimes, you have to think, what year am I talking about? Was Sony involved? Was BMG involved? Did they still have RCA? Well, RCA, that brand went through it all along because they'd bought up those rights. But it does get a bit of a minefield, doesn't it, what you're talking about? It does for me anyway. Anywho, yeah, so their plan was to try and get each of those singles into the top 30. You know, a nice little achievement, bringing out all these again. Actually, it did somewhat better than that, and they had to sort of revise their expectations upwards, as we shall see. So, yeah, it was a flawed campaign. So what happened was, with the first release, you got the box to contain them in, which was numbered, and with that you got the first of the singles, which was All Shook Up, which wasn't numbered because it came in the box. Now, All Shook Up wasn't eligible for chart classification because it came with this box, and you weren't allowed to have anything extra promotional or packaging or whatever it was and be eligible for chart positions. So the first single was discounted, which many weren't happy with, because they really would have liked to see all the singles chart again. And you know, there were various ideas put forward for how they could have got around this, but they didn't. So in the first week they actually released the box and All Shook Up, and the second single in the series, which was Jailhouse Rock. You can see all the singles on the bottom there. So you had your box with all your singles, and we'll get to what they look like in a moment. And then you had your 10-inch versions, which again, the first one came with the box, and the box was numbered, and that came with All Shook Up in the same way, without a number. So again, that didn't qualify in any way. And then Jailhouse Rock was released, and then one a week. Why was it controversial? Well, they messed up on stocks. So not all stores got the box when it was first released. So people that wanted to collect the set didn't have the first single and didn't have anything to house it in. And very soon, fleecers on eBay were charging a fortune for them and sort of exploiting those who wanted to collect the set because they hadn't been able to get them. So that was flaw number 1. Flaw number 2 was that some of the singles only got limited, certain shops only got limited supplies. I mean, this was a crazy time. You know, those of us that were around then, I remember on a Monday morning queuing up at those record stores. You know, before they opened, we've got a town about 10 miles away from us that had a big HMV store at the time, and it was in a shopping centre, but I'd be there queuing up with others, waiting for them to try and grab one off the shelves and try and get the lowest number you could, because that was a thing as well, wasn't it? But some people missed out, and again, you know, they found themselves victim to profiteers on eBay that were charging a fortune because they'd obviously gone in and bought them up. I can't quite remember if that you were restricted for how many you could buy. You might have been. Let me know in the comments if you know whether that was the case. But yeah, there were supply problems. There was nothing wrong with the campaign. There was nothing wrong with the way they released them. In fact, I think they're great. But the actual supply chain and the way it was executed was somewhat flawed. So much so that further down the line, the fan club started offering a sort of complete your collection series, and Sony BMG had to produce further copies, but those further copies were unnumbered, which was rather ironic because they became rarer than the numbered ones because there were less of them. So, you know, that was an accidental offshoot of that little plan. But anyway, before we take a look at them, it's worth looking at the numbers. So we ran from January to April 2005, and 3 of these re-releases made number 1. It was Jailhouse Rock, One Night, and most significantly, It's Now or Never, because It's Now or Never became the coveted 1000th UK number 1. Which was really something to shout about. Yes, singles didn't sell in as great numbers as they once had, but even so, Elvis got the 1000th UK number 1. And as I said, you know, the plan was to get these into the top 30. They all made the top 5. Every single one of them, apart from All Shook Up, which didn't qualify because of the box, made the top 5. Which I think, you know, even though, you know, numbers of sales weren't what they were, the sort of dying breaths of the CD single, this attack on the charts by Elvis, the man that had done so much for popular music, had sold so many records, to be able to achieve that, I think is something special. Now, why I haven't looked at them so far, I will get there. But although there were supply issues, and although CD singles were beginning to die out, Sony BMG weren't put off. So this was 2005. In 2007, they decided to have another bash. This time, these were branded as 18 of the greatest singles ever, and they came out in exactly the same way. The box itself was numbered, and the first release, Heartbreak Hotel, was in it unnumbered, and then subsequent weeks, all the other CD singles came out numbered. So, you know, you've got to applaud. You know, they certainly, they'd experienced some difficulties, and there were no such difficulties with these ones. There were no supply issues at all that were reported that I could find. So they obviously got their act together. But I think, you know, despite all the criticism that they faced, they had another bash and brought these out. And 13 of these achieved the top 20. So not as spectacularly successful as the original set. And I don't know whether that's due to the fact that this one probably didn't have quite the level of hype that the other one had, which would have promoted some of the interest. But nevertheless, you know, 13 of these still made the top 20, which I think is a pretty good feat. And like the first one, the 10-inch vinyl equivalent followed exactly the same pattern with a numbered box, with the first release unnumbered, and then subsequently 17 releases. Now there was a US box that was released, and that was released in April 2005, and that didn't follow the same campaign in that they weren't released separately. You bought the box all together. And I did used to have a copy of the US one. In fact, I remember at the time I got it quite cheaply off Amazon. I think at the time I paid about £30 odd. I'm sure, you know, I haven't got it anymore. I haven't re-added it to the collection this time round. Oh, I didn't show the singles we're talking about, did I? Simply because I think there are, let me just check, there are only 4 singles, so you got 20 in the US box, and there are only 4 that aren't in either of those. So I Want You, I Need You, I Love You, Love Me Tender, Too Much and Stuck on You aren't in these, but all the others are. The approach and the way that the CDs are housed and everything is very similar. So because prices of that one are quite high these days, certainly compared to what I originally paid, I haven't added it to the collection this time around. These two will do me. But right, why I haven't opened them up so far, I thought what we'd do, I thought rather than just, you know, get each of these out and show them, because I'm sure plenty of people have seen them, I'll try and do something a little bit different. So what I want to do is kind of have my own shootout between the boxes. Which one do I think is the best? Which one has more of my favourite singles, songs? So I'm going to do them in the order that they were released, and I'm just, for no scientific examination, it's just what out of the two I think is the best, and we'll see which box wins out, because you kind of in some ways expect the number ones to automatically win out because the other one was a follow-up and they weren't number ones, but that's not necessarily the case for any of us, is it? You know, in our minds, the thing that makes a song great, why we prefer one over the other, and it's always difficult with Elvis, let's face it, because I love them all, as I'm sure you do. But I'm going to see which of these boxes I favour. So, the other thing is, which was quite nice in the original box, is you got all the original release dates around the edge there. And you did get just a little booklet that came with it, telling you when they were going to be released. And then there was a little plug for the fan club. So you did know when your singles were coming out. So we start on, this one was, I don't know when, so we must be 7 days, but about the 3rd of January, I think the first one, because it says All Shook Up and limited edition box out now, Jailhouse Rock out now, one night, 10th of January, so a week later. So these must have come out on the 3rd, and then we went right through to the 25th of April with a little less conversation. So that was quite nice, you know, you got a nice little leaflet there. So the order of these is, it starts off a little bit strange. You didn't get any booklet with the second one, or if you did, I haven't got it, and you didn't get the release dates or anything. So the first single, and we'll just have a look at how they presented them, because I think it was really nice. So what they did is, oh, you did get a number on the one that came with the box, and it was a different number to the, I didn't think that was numbered, unless I'm not sure what's happened there. Anyway, so in the UK, as we all know, for some reason the record company was really stingy and didn't give us picture sleeves. We didn't get them until the late 60s. I think the first one was Suspicious Minds. So what they decided to do with these was give us the US picture sleeves, because of course, you know, the American singles were, you know, look at the sleeves they got compared to ours. It's but you got a replica of that, not an exact replica, because of course you've got your limited edition number, but to sort of give us the best of both worlds. Oh, and one other thing, because of licensing and whatever, you didn't end up, so the US originals would have had Nipper, but we end up with a sort of amalgam, and we get the RCA Lightning logo. So there is a sort of copyright thing there, but you know, fairly faithful reproduction, really nice stiff card, nicely printed. And to cover both bases, you got a replica of a sort of generic bag that we may have seen in the UK around the time. So there's that attention to detail, but you know, they went one further, which I thought was brilliant. Not only did you get a sort of replica of the record label, but there actually are raised grooves on there to sort of replicate the feel of a vinyl single. And one step further, so that the illusion wasn't completely ruined by the fact it was a standard CD, they were black CDs. I just think, you know, the attention to details, fantastic. Nothing like these. We'd never seen anything like that before. Just putting those grooves on, just making it black. Just fantastic. And they all followed that pattern. That's what they all look like. And you often got a little promotional card in as well. So we will go with the first release from the first set and the first release from the second. So our number ones gives us All Shook Up and That's When Your Heartache Begin. But box 2, Heartbreak Hotel and I Was the One. Now, there we go. We even get what's nice about this, we get a purple label which kind of echoes the HMV label that this would have been on. But of course, because they couldn't get HMV licensing, because this is Sony, BMG and RCA, we get RCA Victor in gold writing on it's sort of amalgam on a purple label. So I think that's nice. But okay, I love All Shook Up, but Heartbreak Hotel, you know, that seminal song that really does announce Elvis arriving at RCA and choosing a song that no one would have predicted, a sort of doom-laden. It's you know, it sounds like nothing else. It hit like nothing else. Box 2 wins for me on the first one. So, this is a tricky one. This is a tricky one because the order's strange. So, box 1, Jailhouse Rock and Treat Me Nice. I'm not going to show these because until we get to different sleeves. So, Jailhouse Rock, an absolute stone cold classic, I'm sure you'll agree. But because of the order that they did box 2 in, Suspicious Minds, I'm going to have to give it to box 2. I don't know why they put Suspicious Minds as their second one, because by and large the rest of the second set follows chronological order, and certainly the first set does. So I don't know why they jumped Suspicious Minds in there, but that's the order they were released in. But I've got to give it to box 2 again, and you'll see something different there. So there's your generic 70s sleeve and your orange Victor label replica. I just think the attention to detail is gorgeous. So 2-0. 2-0. Box 1, One Night and I Got Stung. Box 2, Blue Suede Shoes and Tutti Frutti. I honestly, I thought to myself before I did this episode that look, I'm not going to look at them in advance. I'm just going to pull these out one by one. And I'm getting a bit surprised now because I'm giving it to box 2 again. Love One Night, love I Got Stung, but Blue Suede Shoes is, you know, it's another seminal classic. So 3-0. Oh dear. Release 4, A Fool Such As I and I Need Your Love Tonight. Just look at the sleeves, they're so good. Hound Dog and Don't Be Cruel. Hound Dog and Don't Be Cruel. Have we still got purple? Yeah, we've still got purple. Box 2. Box 2 for me. 4-0. Oh, right, here we go. It's Now or Never and A Mess of Blues. So, the 1000th UK number 1. Teddy Bear and Loving You. Okay, I'm going to give this one for me to box 1. So we are on 4-1. Are You Lonesome Tonight? Party. What do we think? Party and Got a Lot of Living to Do. Are You Lonesome Tonight? And I Gotta Know. I'm going to give it to Are You Lonesome Tonight, but it's very, very, well, they're all very close. But so, 4-2. Wooden Heart, box 1. Oops. Don't, box 2. I'm going to give it to box 2. I think, for me, Don't's a superior song. Nothing wrong with Wooden Heart. Or Puppet on a String, indeed. Just the way these are done. I think they're superb. I've forgotten just how good they are. So, what are we on? 5-2. Surrender. Hard-Headed Woman. I'm giving it to box 2. 6-2. His Latest Flame and Little Sister. King Creole. And what else have we got then? Dixieland Rock. I'm losing count now. Did we say 5-2? I think we did. I'm going to give this to King Creole. 6-2. Blue Hawaii. Big Hunk of Love. 7-2 to the second box for me. Good Luck Charm. Wear My Ring Around Your Neck. I can't believe this. Again, I'm going box 2. 8-2. No, yeah. So, She's Not You, Just Tell Her Jim Said Hello, If I Can Dream, and Memories. Box 2. 9-2. Return to Sender and Viva Las Vegas. That's really tricky. Really tricky. I think I'm going to go box 1. So I'm completely losing count. Is that 8-3? I should have written these down, shouldn't I? I think it's 8-3. Please Don't Drag That String Around. In the Ghetto. Box 2. 9-3. Crying in the Chapel. You Don't Have to Say You Love Me. Box 2. Box 2 all the way, I'm afraid. 10-3. The Wonder of You. Ooh, this one's a tricky one. And Always on My Mind. I'm going to call that one a draw. So we'll go 12-4. Way Down, American Trilogy. I think for me it's American Trilogy. 14-4, does that make us? And Burning Love and Little Less Conversation. Gotta be Burning Love. 15-4. 15-4. So for me, the second box is the stronger of the two. I didn't see that coming at all. But anyway, let me know what you think of that, because you might think some of that's outrageous selections. But one thing I think it's worth pointing out as well is that after the first box had come out, it obviously was an inspiration to the sort of fledgling Memphis recording service, because in August 2005, no, was it? No, I think it was August 2007. August 2007, they released this, and this was released in conjunction with HMV. So it's quite ironic that you saw those replica purple labels on some of the earlier ones there that were the purple of what the HMV labels were originally, but they were branded RCA. But MRS managed to get a deal. These were sold exclusively through HMV stores, and they really do follow the pattern of the originals. So My Baby Left Me and One-Sided Love Affair, and they even go as far as replicating the inner sleeve for HMV, and this time purple we get the proper replica HMV label, because of course they had the licensing. So they were clearly influenced by Sony BMG's campaign of 2 years previously. And not only that, actually, see, those grooves aren't raised, but they are still replicated, and they still do look good, and they still do go with the black CD. So I think it's brilliant. You know, this is MRS in its infancy, and they clearly took a cue from what Sony BMG had done 2 years previously, because this came out just before Sony BMG started releasing the second box. And, you know, they went with their own version, which I just think is fantastic. You know, what a great result, you know. So I sort of keep that in there because it was heavily influenced, inspired by that. But, you know, it's funny because if I were to look at the 18 number ones box in isolation, I would tell you wholeheartedly I love every single one of them. And I'm quite surprised, just looking at that, pulling them out of the cuff, just how many I prefer in that second box. The second box does have slightly more late 60s, early 70s, which my leaning is always towards in terms of preference. But even so, I was quite surprised at that. So there's the two sets of boxes, which I think are fantastic. You can pick these up. People kept entire collections, and they are sort of slowly, you see them being sold off. So, you know, you can get them in nice quality. In fact, all these were bought off eBay, because although I had the originals of the first box, but I think I didn't bother at the time with the second box, because I was kind of burned a bit by how difficult it got. Because I think of the original set, two of them I couldn't get in the store. They didn't have them, so I had to end up paying through the nose on eBay. So I think I was a bit cynical, and I wonder if that was the case. You know, I said that, you know, all of these got in the top 5, but only 13 of these made the top 20. And I wonder if other fans felt the same way as me, that they were a bit burned by that original experience. Could be. But it could have a lot to do with, you know, the CD single was pretty much dying a death, as I said, by then. Oh, one thing to point out as well, with the HMV, there were 15,000 of these produced, the MRS HMV collab, and this actually did make the indie charts. So the official ones made the official charts, but this being an independent, it made it into the independent charts, and it actually scored number 19. So not bad, not bad. But yeah, a nice little curio. Now, for anyone, if anyone hasn't seen the, there we go, we've got the vinyl equivalent as well. So MRS did exactly the same. You know, not only did they mirror the way that the Sony BMG campaign had gone, but when they issued theirs, they also issued it as a limited edition What number have we got? I don't know if there was, I think there was 15, yeah, there was 15,000 of these as well, I think. But I just think that's fantastic. So that sits in there with these, and the same thing, although you didn't, I suppose my one sort of disappointment with these is they didn't follow the same as the CDs. Because let's face it, these weren't released as 10 inches at the time, and these weren't 10-inch bags. So if they were going to go down that route, they could have maybe given us those outer sleeves. Wouldn't they look great, that artwork and that size? But they didn't. We only got the inner bags for them all. So we got those ones, and then when you get your 70s releases, they look like that. And some of these, half of these, again, I picked these up because I didn't have them originally. And this collection I bought here, half of the first set are still sealed, which is nice. And the box for the 10-inch followed the same pattern. You've got the release dates around them. And for the second batch, again, this one was picked up off eBay. Some people charge a fortune for these. You don't have to pay a fortune. You can get a really nice set for sort of £50–60 if you get them for people that aren't just out to make a ridiculous profit. And of course on this one, the original one isn't sealed because it came in the box, but my second set, everyone's still factory sealed, which is quite nice. In actual fact, they're all up the wrong way, aren't they? So on these ones, I see, yes, they were a bit random by the look of it with where they put the stickers. Some of them were down the side, some were on the top, but I just think, you know, we'd seen the Artist of the Century campaign at the beginning, late 90s going into the 2000, and then we saw those Millennium Masters, and then we saw this. So, you know, again, it speaks, there's something about the 2000s that Sony BMG were just on a roll. They really were being creative in the way they tried to present Elvis in new ways to hopefully new markets. And furthermore, even with this one, what they did the same year, they followed this setup with this CD. And what this CD, you see it's got the same branding, Elvis the King, same colour, but on this you've pretty much got all the tracks from both boxes, all the main lead A-sides, so all the 18 number ones and all what they called the 18 of the greatest singles ever, and then you got bonus songs as well. So, you know, they followed it up, right, we've released all these singles, let's put it all onto one little sort of summary of everything. The branding is all very much sort of on a par with the boxes. I don't think you've got much of a booklet to speak of. Just your track listings and a couple of black and white photographs. So, you know, basically 3 era photographs, 50s, 60s and 70s. But, you know, a nice little sort of end point to those two campaigns. And on top of releasing the CD, they also released a DVD as well. So you get some of those key performances. Actually, you can see Elvis performing them. So, you know, whether it's on early TV shows, whether it's from the 68 special, whether it's from clips from the movies that had those tracks in. So, you know, a nice little finishing off. What I think is interesting about this as well, we're talking about 2007, but when you look at the hype sticker on the front, Elvis, 30 hit performances for the first time on one DVD. They're using the branding from the 30 number one CD. Same colour, same logo, and yet this is 5 years after that was released, which I found quite interesting. I wonder why they were still using that all that time later. You'd think they'd branded it like that, or even maybe sort of harked back to those sort of colours, which kind of probably, if the hype sticker had had those, that would have made more sense against that. But strange that they should bring out that gold and that number 1 again. So it's like, you know, I suppose maybe that again was seen as a sort of summation of, okay, we've done the 2 boxes and we had the 30 number 1s. Let's tie it all together, put it all on there on one DVD, because we never did a DVD when we put the 30 number 1s out. So it could be that the thinking was along those lines. But again, I think this just shows that there was a real, you know, sort of not bravery of thought, but, you know, an innovative approach. You know, that marketing machine was really sort of looking for new ways to get Elvis's stuff out there. I think, you know, despite the fact that the actual supply chain was a bit botched with the first one, to come up with this idea to release these in this format with this care and attention to detail as a celebration of his 70th birthday, you know, fantastic. I mean, let's face it, we've just had Elvis's 90th birthday this year, and what did we get? What did we get from Sony for that? Nothing, did we? Unless it was so insignificant, I've already forgotten it, but I don't think we got anything. So it just goes to show that there was a different school of thinking going back in the 2000s, and you know, it was all the better for it, in my opinion. I think these are fantastic. I think these are, you know, great little things to have in the collection, both the CD and the vinyl versions. It's a really nice little tie-in to have. But there we go. Let me know what you think. You know, at the time, did you collect them? Were you burned and couldn't get them all and then had to pay through the nose? Did you think, you know, were you pleased that we got the 1000th number 1? Did you think more of them should have got higher? Just let me know what you think, as ever. I always love to hear your comments. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that little troll through. Also, let me know what you think about my choices where it comes to which one of those ones was best, because I'm sure not everyone's going to agree with me by any way, shape or form, and that's just how it should be. But thanks for watching. Hope you're able to join me next week for next week's video. But until then, whatever you're doing, take care, everyone. Ta-da.
We'll meet you again. May God bless you. Adios.